Before we begin the episode, I would like to thank our sponsor, Actimet, an athlete wellness and performance monitoring system. Actimet allows players to share their training load, training intensity and highlight issues away from sport, empowering management to help players in a safe, secure and private manner. Players input their performance and wellness data on an easy-to-use mobile app. Actimet is an affordable monitoring system at less than €50 a month and is currently used by county and All-Ireland champions and over 50 soccer academies worldwide. For more information, please visit actimet.com for more. Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 86, I'm delighted to be joined by former professional rugby player and now CFL Kicker Tadhg Leader. On this episode we discuss his mentality, switching to American football, being a trailblazer and creating his own path, his NFL dreams and so much more. I hope you enjoy. Hi Tadhg, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
How's it going? Cheers, thank you very much. Looking forward to chatting.
Before we get into everything, would you mind giving yourself a little bit of an elevator pitch to the listeners who might not know who you are?
Yeah, short version, from Galway. Played rugby all my life and kind of progressed through that system in Ireland. And then got injured, and that gave me the opportunity to go play, move to the States to study. Went there, got my degree done, and then professional rugby rolled around in America. So I ended up playing that, and then I ended up playing for the US national team over like a 5 or 6 year period. COVID comes along, and in rugby, kicking was always my biggest asset, say. And people in the US, obviously American football is quite a popular sport. So people always encourage me to give American football a go. Over the last year, I've been doing that, and I just, in the last few days, signed to play in the Canadian Football League, which is, the NFL's number 1 and the CFL's number 2. So I'm getting to play, in a pretty big league now in American football as a kicker. So there's a short version for you.
If I had gone back to kind of teenage Tadhg and said you're going to be a kicker for NFL, what would you have said to me?
Oh, I would have been absolutely thrilled, but it's something I mean, I love rugby, but I love kicking more. So yeah, for sure, 100%. So it's something I tell myself every day when I'm kind of writing things down, planning, kind of sorting out my headspace, is remind myself like how happy would 10-year-old Tadhg be that this is what you're doing. And I just turned 30 2 days ago, believe it or not.
Oh, so, wow! Yeah. Happy birthday! Sorry.
Yeah, it's a tough one to hit, but I'm happy. I'm feeling good, and I'm doing what I love. So that's I'm happy enough.
Why kicking for you? You mentioned you kind of you obviously love rugby. I know your family's a huge rugby background, but why kicking? What's the big kind of thrill there for you?
So I have 2 brothers, and we're all within 5 years of each other in age. So I have a bit of space here at the house. So just kicking rugby balls, soccer balls, Gaelic football, whatever. Just love kind of just kicking around, and then got really lucky having brothers and having space, because we could always just go outside and have a kickabout or play hurling, whatever, basketball, whatever was going on. We're just happy to go out and play. So through that, myself, my other brother Dara, he played just under 100 games for Connacht and was in an Ireland squad a few years ago. So he had a really good career himself in rugby, and he was a very good kicker. So we were just fortunate, just through we just spent so much more hours practicing it, and then obviously if you're good at something, you enjoy it, you spend more and more time doing it. So I often say, I remember getting from Santa when I was 10 years of age, getting kicking tees and rugby balls, and just spending Christmas Day going to the rugby pitch kicking. So I love that. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, how it started, and then thankfully been kicking ever since.
And how do you develop a routine? I'd say it was around probably that teenage years when you take sport very seriously, and as you said, you start to get good at it, start to develop a routine in terms of you're kicking, not potentially with your practice, but how do you develop that for a lot of younger listeners, particularly from a GAA point of view, that are big or heavy involved in free taking? So how did you develop your free taking routine in terms of rugby?
Yeah, watching others, really, on TV, watching, and I love football, Gaelic football. like that was probably my best sport. I loved it. And I used to take the frees and stuff. And I would just be just watching others. Probably the biggest thing, whoever was good at the time, playing intercounty, you probably would have tried to mimic some of what they were doing in rugby. For example, a guy called Johnny Wilkinson, he was like probably the best kicker of all time. So whatever Johnny Wilkinson was doing, I was doing it. And even to this day, some of my kind of stance and pre-kick routine was, just from watching him on TV, and then you kind of, develop it into your own stuff. So I'd say from watching others and trial and error was probably the biggest thing. And beyond that, I wouldn't have put a whole lot of kind of formal thought towards the process, like the process and the breathing and the self-talk. And there are things then that come with experience. The more you do, and now in the world of American football, where all I do is kick, you realize you have a more kind of robust system in place for yourself. But that's kind of how it would have happened for me as a younger age. And you trial and error, just get out and doing it and see what you like, see what you don't like.
But I love what you said there about kind of developing systems and kind of when you get that through experience. So how has your routine and your systems evolved, particularly over the last few years, maybe moving to a new sport, or have you kept everything kind of similar? Obviously, it's different. It's a very different sport and different role. But have you kept any similarities from rugby?
I guess the kind of the pre-kick, well, I guess for rugby, it's just so much more controlled, because it's just you and the ball, and you have time to set it up and take up to 60 seconds. Whereas in American football, you have 1.3 seconds and you have someone else holding it, so you have a lot more variables at play. But just in terms of just pre-kick, in terms of you want to be as consistent as possible. So like for me, that just you have your routine in terms of your alignment, in terms of your steps, the angles that you're there, and then once you get back into your stance in either sport, then just kind of tapping into your routine, whether the routine's already begun at that point. But then into your mental side of things, your breathing, how you're kind of controlling that, and your self-talk. A lot of people have different little triggers that they might kind of tell themselves as they're going through that routine. So that's something I use in rugby, but I've definitely become much more aware of it in American football, because the stakes are just higher, because you're only on the only time you enter the pitch is for that 1.2 seconds. So everything you do is aimed to that. Whereas in rugby, kicking was just one component of, a bigger picture. So I think now I've become much more aware of my process and more reading, more understanding of like how it can be such a good anchor for you to have that routine, have that comfort, so you can just trust in that, versus if you have too many things going on, or you don't have a good kind of foundation, I think it's more likely something might crack along the way. So yeah, that's kind of how football has definitely helped a lot, and I've learned a lot more about it.
Would you mind taking us through from the moment you're going to enter the pitch for that 1.2 seconds to you actually kicking the ball? Can you take us through kind of what happens, your thought process, how you go through your systems, if you don't mind sharing that on a public domain?
Yeah. Again, I'm still relatively new in the sport as well. I've only played I think 10, 11 games. But no, I think it starts once we score, or we kind of get it in football. There's 4 downs. Once it kind of is coming to the 3rd down, if they don't make that, I know I'm probably up next. So that, it just starts with for me, I just kick one ball in. There's a net on the sideline. I just kick one ball into the net, just because I could be sitting down for an hour prior waiting. So just about getting one ball into the net and just really focusing on how does that just feel it on your foot is a big thing for me. Is a little trigger I use just to focus on getting that knuckle of your foot. Just do it once. Hopefully it feels good. If it doesn't, you might do a second, just so you're kind of entering the pitch with that kind of sensation of what you want the ball to feel like. And then and then you got to find your way up the pitch through 60 lads who are all screaming and shouting. You're just there breathing, maybe sipping water, just trying to meander around them. So because you don't have time to get caught up in all that emotion. It's like liking it to golf. And as a golfer, you need to be very zen. Everyone else is around you. It can be a bit chaotic, but the role that we have. So for me, then just instantly, I'm just kind of focusing on my breath. Just very deliberate breathing, and that's something. So then that just takes my focus to literally the present moment and what I'm doing. So that's just breathing and then once it's time to go on, usually just try and remain as relaxed as possible. So it's a walk on or a very slow jog, not looking to get my heart rate up too high, And in that, at that time, you're scanning. You're obviously well aware of the elements because you're watching throughout the game. You're looking at the flags or the whatever's going on, but you're probably just checking in the elements one more time, making sure you're happy. And then kind of once you have a spot, they call it, where the guide is holding the ball spot. And then once, I just get my foot lined up because the ball's not there. That's the difference in rugby. The ball is there and you control the angles you place it at. Whereas, I'm lining myself up just based off a guy's finger on the ground, which is to kind of be an indicator as this is where the ball should be in like 7-8 seconds once we get going here.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was different. And what I've learned now with football is you have a shot clock ticking. So in rugby, I take my time. What I've learned now in football, you don't really have the luxury of time. So for me, it's automatic now, I guess, for the most part. But again, it's just kind of breathing, taking my 3 steps back, and then just giving myself one or two little positive affirmations, depending on it might change, but just something to just to kind of almost just say, like, put yourself in a good headspace to go attack the moment that's going to happen. And all that would happen over like 6-7 seconds. You're kind of getting back and you're breathing relatively quick, and then once I just shift the weight forward on my feet on my tippy toes, which is just kind of saying, okay, now we're about to go. And then I just nod at the fella should be catching the ball. And once I give him a nod, he then acknowledges that. And then within 1.3 seconds, you're swinging a leg at a ball. So, that's kind of as much as that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah. And how do you find it in terms of throughout your rugby career and now with American football, dealing with the pressure of being a kicker? Like, even you said, you're only on the field for a very, very short amount of time in American football. And even let's say it's a close game or you knew this was a really crucial kick in any sport. How do you deal with that pressure? Are there any tips you can give to someone listening that maybe struggles with that kind of scenario or that environment?
Yeah, and that's something I'm still working on. And I've had days where I've gone on in those moments and scored, and I've had days where I've gone on in those moments and missed. A big thing that I've kind of using for learn, like, ideally you want to be as consistent and in routine as possible. So like I said, that's kind of my routine. And ideally, if you're pretty happy with that and you're comfortable with that, you can just kind of sink into the routine and not really be aware of the externals or the moment. Mm-hmm. Easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. Easier said than done. I'm just really big on self-talk. If I do find my headspace kind of go, oh, this is to win or whatever, this is a big kick, just trying to, again, easier said than done, but just talk about, treat it as any other kick, and then just focus on, having those thoughts they're not doing anything for it. Some people might get excited, other people mightn't. Depends how you want to react to that pressure. But for me, it's more so around just like trusting myself, and trusting my routine, and that's going to get me there. Because like, how many hours do you spend on a pitch on your own, kicking and working on these things? Like that's where you lay that foundation. So when the lights are on, the cameras are on, that's kind of irrelevant. And that definitely has come with years of doing this, or years of doing it in rugby and now football. And I'm still learning in football, because I know it's going to be different when I'm up playing in Canada, because the field is slightly different dimensions to what I'm used to. So I have to get used to those things. But I like, my biggest thing is again, I've said it probably 20 times already, but it really is around like I deliberate breathing. And that just takes, if you're focusing on your inhale, exhale, that's where your headspace is at. Your headspace isn't on the external pressures. So that's something that I like to rely on a lot. And it definitely helps me then it just shifts your attention to what's the moment in front of your face versus what's going on around you.
Love it. Speaking of shift in mindset, it's interesting whether in GAA, let's say a free taker or basketball, when you're taking a free throw, they're team sports, but it's a very individual moment in time. And as you mentioned, let's say when something goes well or maybe something doesn't go well and there's you miss the kick. How do you deal with those moments where you're in a team environment but it's your individual role or your individual event that hasn't gone well in a team environment? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's something, again, that is constantly ongoing. And, I definitely tell myself, if it doesn't go according to plan, okay, what's happened has happened, but the next opportunity I get, I'm not going to be fearful of it. And I'm not going to just kind of, when you're kicking, for example, you can just try and like chip it through. and just to play it safe, or you can really attack it and get after it and like bang it. I do, for me, it's kind of like if it doesn't go over, some kickers when they go into their shell, that's when they get nervous and then they're just trying to chip it through and just play it safe. The reason you're there is because you're good at it. So and you're best at it when you go attack the moment. So for me, it would be if I've missed, I've missed kicks for sure. I think everyone's missed kicks, but I've missed kicks, and it's just something I started in American football. Actually, is second I come off the pitch, I write down what happened in my head when it's fresh. I write down whether it was something physical or something mental. A lot of time, it's usually, and even if a kick goes wrong, but I approached it, I really attacked the ball, I can live with that. Or I've had 1 or 2 kicks where I probably played it safe and it didn't go over, and they're the ones that you struggle with a lot. So I've been kind of learning just to do a quick kind of breakdown of what just occurred and see is there any learning opportunity within that, or what decipher what didn't go right. And if it was something physical, whether me or the guy placing the ball, yeah, that happens the odd time. But then also if it was something mental, maybe I left my process, or I might have had whatever kind of talk going on. You just try and just recognize it, and then just kind of tell yourself, you're going to get another shot at this, and you got to go attack it, because you don't have time for playing it safe, especially being a new sport. And I'm very untraditional, so like I know if I play it safe, it's probably not the best path for me. So I'm just trying to like, it's going to go wrong, I'm going to go out and burn flames, versus kind of just disappearing into the background. That's the way I look at it. And same for rugby or football. Like, trust that the reason you're given the responsibility, the reason why in the team sport you're given this individual moment is because you're the one that's ready for this. You're the most qualified to do this. So trust yourself within that, and go after the moment, versus kind of play a little bit safe, because that's usually when errors happen.
Love that. I was interested, you mentioned there taking notes. Is that just during misses, or would you take notes? Let's say if a kick goes well, you put it over.
Yeah, everything. Because I have time. So obviously in rugby, I never did that, but I've had so many learning moments in football that I need to almost like just have a bit of dialogue. So after a game, I can figure out, oh, this went well because, or this didn't go well because. So it's just for me, and because in football, I have time to go over to the sideline and sit down. So I just get out my pen. I basically 2 years ago, I started journaling, writing every day. And then when I got into football, I just, before games, I have a lot of pre-game thoughts or kind of little mental triggers. So
Yeah.
before going on the pitch for each kick, I might, have a little read of that. And their messages. So in something I start to do now is I talk to myself as if I'm the coach, meaning sometimes we can be a little bit hard on ourselves, but I know when I coach rugby and I do coach people, that I know more often than not, your dialogue is more positive with the athlete, with the player, where sometimes even as an individual thing, you might be a little bit harder on yourself. So I've switched I talk to myself as if I'm the coach, and that's allowed things to be a lot more kind of positive. And I've liked that a lot. I'm not sure where I picked that up, but it's something that I've been doing. And then, as I said, I just have my notepad then, so I can read my triggers. And then once something happens, then I'm just getting a message down as to what it was. So yeah, it's actually been a helpful process. I appreciate you can't do that in every sport, or I guess you could do it after the game, or pre-game, which I know people, I'm sure they do. But for me, it's just been a way just to learn quicker, I guess.
I really like that method you said there, because it's always that internal dialogue. There's a great saying, even, if if the voice in your head is being really negative, like, would you speak to your best friend in that way? No, because they wouldn't put up with it. And I really like that version of the coach, because you're right. And as a player and as a coach in a different sport, I would have a similar individual mindset in terms of playing. I'd be very, very hard on myself, and as a coach I see other players do it, but I really like that trick. In terms of your journaling, what was the spark to start journaling even outside of sport, and do you have a specific structure, or do you just kind of put pen to paper?
Yeah, as I said, probably like two, I guess COVID 2 years ago, the start of that or whatever it was. Yeah, I don't know what the initial catalyst was. Oh, around a year and a half ago, sorry. Around a year and a half ago when I first started kicking American footballs for fun, with no intention of what's happening, what has happened about, I didn't expect the path and the journey I've gone on since I first kicked. That was probably a little bit of a catalyst just to kind of remember the journey. So if it has taken the route, thankfully it has taken, I think it's been cool to have that to reflect upon it. So maybe that might have been part of how I started. But in terms of a process, I generally just try and do it every night. And it's some days it could be almost just a synopsis of the day. Other days it could be a lot more mental, like what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. Other days it's, let's say on average, it's probably a bit of both. If it wasn't a too stressful day, or if it wasn't nothing too major was happening, it might be more of a synopsis day, just because I probably haven't been thinking that deeply. Whereas other days, when there's a lot more happening, I probably check into that a little bit more. And yeah, it's just something I've been, it got to be a year and a half, just in the afternoons, and I like it a lot. I was hopping the bus yesterday coming back from Dublin to Galway, and I was just flicking through. I just went to a random page for a few months ago, and it's really nice, sometimes to kind of read the things you were telling yourself, even when I was hoping to find myself in the situation I do, but I felt like I was a million miles away from it. So it just kind of, a lot of the time is that positive dialogue with myself. So it was even fun yesterday, just kind of reading and thinking, oh, this is great. Like there I was 6 months ago wondering what the hell am I doing at times, but then kind of telling myself to keep on this, and someone has to be a pioneer and someone has to do this. Someone's going to do it eventually. Why not me? And then things of that nature. So yeah.
Brilliant. So you mentioned your journey there. You have a really interesting path. I know underage rugby was always your number one. I know 2011, you're part of the Connacht under 20 Grand Slam winning team, and you were kind of in and out of Irish teams as well. What's it like going through that system, going through the Connacht system, the Irish system from a young age? And I know that you then moved to the States, but what's that kind of initial start like, representing your country, being involved in the high performance environment?
Yeah, well, we had an interesting one. We, meaning there was around 8 of us that were brought in when we were like 15. And I remember training full time in the summers, like every day of the week, for like a few months. School holidays, we were doing it. And a few lads in that group have gone on to play for Ireland. They've gone on to do a lot. I think, I'm trying to think, it was like a good group of players. I think 8 of us. But anyway, in hindsight, maybe I think when I got to the tail end of my time at Connacht, I felt quite burned out, and I felt like I had been there for 6-7 years. Where in actual fact, I'd only been in the seat, the kind of seat. I was in the academy, but training with the senior team for like 2 years probably. But I felt like I'd been there for 6 or 7 because, I got exposed to it really early. And even when you're 15, we're in training full time, which is good to get you in a high performance thing. And I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was what I wanted to be doing. I was very happy. But in hindsight, as I said, when I was only 21, 22, I was kind of thinking, wow, I've been here for ages. I've been in this building for years. And that was just me, but it was a really good foundation. But to be exposed to like professional sports at that age, and it means my lifestyle was quite different in terms of school holidays, you're training, summers training full time. You're not going away to people going off for J1s or different trips. You're not doing any of that. I had to stop playing hurling and football. I love that, but I have to stopped doing all those things to kind of really focus. And I have had phenomenal experiences. So I hope I don't come across as that was the next. Yeah, reflecting on it. It was, that was just kind of how it was for me. But when I was in it, I loved it up until maybe the last year and a half when the body starts breaking down. Up to that point, absolutely loved it. So it was a class experience. And again, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be sitting here chatting with you with kind of the background I've had and where I'm at if I didn't get those opportunities. So yeah, it's I'm not sure does it still happen that young or not, because I think as well you need to make time for the sports, time for your social life, and just that was kind of how I went about it.
Mm-hmm. I understand you obviously did love it in the moment, and even you mentioned there the injury. Sometimes that is a catalyst for athletes that that may enter burnout, is an injury when they realise they're not flying fit. It's a lot of work to go back to that level. Hey, what advice would you give? I'm a coach. You mentioned you coach. How do we prevent burnout in any age group? It can happen to anybody, even adults who are playing for fun. How do you try prevent burnout as a coach? Is there anything that you've kind of realised or you've kind of taken from your playing experience?
As a coach, I was probably more aware of, even working with some teams that be more kind of high performance to more social teams. But even with the high performance side of things, trying to create like as much fun as often as possible. You still have objectives you need to go achieve with the high level teams, and performance is your currency, to a degree. So, but like you just fitting in like opportunities for smiles, opportunities for laughter, is something that I'm just very aware of when I coach. I want to make sure that, because I definitely got to a point where I wasn't smiling, I wasn't laughing, and I was, then I was just like, I don't want to be here. So that's something as a coach that I'm trying to do. And I appreciate then in different environments, especially in professionalism, I understand like, why it is how it is. But I will say, I do think it's gotten much better as well in rugby. I do think now, I just finished, I did a master's degree, I just finished it a few weeks ago, and it was like MBA, just like general business stuff. But, reading about that and all the stuff that's going on in business and the leaders in business, now it is a lot more about the human and like, making the human feel valued. And then as a result, they're obviously more, emotionally more invested and in the organization or whatever it is they're doing, and more likely to perform, and less turnover, and people are happier, morale's high, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think as well in rugby teams or professional sports or any elite sports, I do think from the experience I've seen the last few years, it's probably happened a little bit more. And maybe even it was happening a whole lot around me at the time. But I guess just being injured, I wasn't in the best headspace, and I didn't know I knew I wasn't loving it, but I didn't really have like the mental capacity at the time to like kind of fully diagnose kind of, I'm not that happy doing this, or to figure it out. I was just kind of keep going with it. And it's only when you kind of leave the bubble of that you realize, oh wow, there's so much more going on out here in the world. And for me, that was kind of going to Italy and then going to the States. So yeah, hopefully I didn't ramble there too much on that.
No, not at all, not at all. I love the way you mentioned that bubble and kind of leaving that bubble. Was that kind of burnout then the catalyst for you to go to Italy and to go to the US then, I presume?
Yeah, I was happy, man, just getting out again, because I live 10 minutes down the road here in Galway. So it was where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. But then the more I got into it, I was kind of, I don't know if this actually is exactly what I want to be doing. So for me, thankfully when I was going to say it's weird, but thankfully when I got to leave, but yeah, that's how I felt about it. And thankfully I got to leave. How it's played out. But yeah, it was just kind of like a release valve. There was like no expectation, pressure. And again, a lot of that expectation, pressure in reality was through me, really. Like of course there's the performance side of things, and you have contracts coming up and you want to be getting game time, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it would have been me and like imagined pressures. Something I tell myself a lot now as well, like don't suffer imagined struggles. Like don't create this narrative in your head that it just isn't reality, but you allow yourself to create a false reality, becomes real in your head then, and you invest in time, emotion towards that. But for me, it was leaving Connacht, and then I went to the US just to play amateur rugby. So very social, had a job. So all of a sudden I was in a total just fun environment, and I just loved it again. And my performance when I was finishing up here, it wasn't good. I was a shadow of what I was capable of, and they knew it, I knew it, but it was kind of escaping that I allowed myself to have fun and just really release and enjoy it. And I had every intention then of going to study, because my body still wasn't right. I had to get shoulder reconstruction, but
okay.
I loved it so much. Interestingly, when I was really enjoying it, my shoulder stopped coming out of socket. When I was finishing my last year and a bit in Connacht, it would just pop out a lot more than I would have told them. It was just coming out quite easily. But interestingly, I went out and played in America, in Boston, really enjoyed it. And physically, I just felt better. I wasn't by any means great, but I physically felt much better, and my shoulder managed to stay intact. So that was good. And then I was going to go study, but I enjoyed that experience so much. I thought to myself, why not? Maybe I need to put myself into a different environment. So then I looked at some clubs in my age and looked at clubs in England, and then something come up to play in Italy. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go do this. So I jumped out and went out to Italy. And unfortunately, that only lasted 2 months, because the shoulder did eventually it has to go. But really good experience to put yourself far outside your comfort zone and learn how much kind of you can just you can have some phenomenal experiences along the way, not just as a playing, but just, away from that. But then as well, like how much when you're kind of in a somewhat more difficult, vulnerable place, that there's huge growth and learning opportunities. And I probably didn't think of it like that at the time. That's what happened, but I didn't have, again, I wasn't thinking, well, this is great, this is uncomfortable, but wow, I'm learning so much about myself. You just live it. But now, having got more awareness about these things, you realize how good that was. But yeah, got the shoulder surgery eventually. And then I moved to the States to study, and I was in there kind of ever since. Yeah.
And how did the opportunity come up to represent the US national rugby team?
So essentially, if you live in a country for more than 3 years non-stop, you qualify to represent that country. It's since moved to 5 years, but that's just like a World Rugby rule. A lot of people are against it, so it's since moved to 5 years. But for me, I moved there with no intentions of really playing professional rugby again, because the professional league in the States didn't exist. I was also just kind of, I want to study and just experience just being a student. But then that led to spending my time there in college, and then the pro league did come along, and I felt really good. My body felt better, so I just jumped in, and the opportunity was to go play in San Diego. So I remember kind of asking them, would I go play there, and I just thought to myself, look, if I can give this one more, like, I was in the interim, I was playing amateur rugby, and I started coaching, and I loved it. But when the opportunity came up to get back into full-time rugby, I remember part of it was I thought to myself, look, it's San Diego. Even if you don't like the rugby, you'll be in San Diego. Give it a crack, and just like do yourself justice. Give it one more good go. And then from playing there, things went well, and then got to 2019. I made my debut for the US team.
Mm-hmm. And did you find that coaching was, again, this kind of realisation, like I found with Gaelic football, that I got to this phase of playing where I didn't love it, but because I was coaching, I was like, nothing actually beats playing. Like, nothing will ever beat going out and getting on the pitch and being involved. Was that into the decision as well, to go back to rugby and go to San Diego and play for the US team, or was it just kind of just giving it a go?
Yeah, I didn't. I know a lot of people have that thought, kind of, you really makes you appreciate playing. I love coaching. Actually really did love coaching. If I was offered a job to be the coach at the time, maybe about too much to say, I was like 27. But no, that wasn't a huge motivation. That I realized how lucky we are to play. It is true, but no, it was more so just kind of like it's gone in American football for me. My mentality has kind of just been like, new experience, new opportunity, jump in and see. You might have a fantastic time, and even if you don't, you're going to learn. There's learning opportunities along the way. So that was probably more so my mindset around that.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned there your debut was in 2019. COVID obviously hit 2020, and you mentioned kind of kicking a few American footballs around for the crack. Where did the original opportunity come up for you to start pursuing this career in American football, and why did you follow it? Why did you pursue it?
Yeah, so the world of American football is very different. Anything I've ever been exposed to. Essentially, I was just kicking for fun, and then I was told I was quite good, so I went out to see this. Kicked in the NFL for 24 years. He's a legend. His name's John Carney. Big, it was good Irish roots, and like, he's just sound man. Anyway, I went out to San Diego again. I wasn't living there at the time, but packed my bags, headed out there, and just kicked with him. He has a lot of the current NFL guys trained there.
Okay.
So I just got to like, the first day I was punting. You kicking and punting. First day I was punting. The lad in front of me that's punting had won 2 Super Bowls with CFL.
Wow.
I didn't have a notion. I didn't have a clue. I knew he looked pretty cool, but I was just jumped in and off I went, kind of swinging the leg and just, yeah. But I did a week there, and then I sat the guy John down and just said, look, because at the time I was like the starting fly half, which is a pretty important position for my team. I'd captained them. Our season was upcoming, and I was heavily involved in everything. And from like obviously on the pitch, but then also off the field, they trusted me enough that I would help them in recruiting, or they'd ask my opinion on things. So I was heavily involved there. And when I sat John down, I just kind of asked him, was like, what do you think? And then he just said, look, you've been doing this 10, 15 days now. And I've seen you kick multiple balls which look like NFL quality balls that you've kicked just in this training environment. So he wasn't making the decision for me because he understood. I was able to tell him like, be straight, because my alternative is still a good alternative. I'm still kicking the ball. I'm still playing sports. Like, I'm happy there if that's where I end up. But so I let it for him to be pretty straight. And yeah, as I said, he just mentioned I kicked multiple NFL looking balls, which are not like, guys usually don't come in and do that after 2 weeks. And like, I have a lot of talent, and like it's very kind of exciting opportunity for me if I want to do it, but recognize you're 28 and no one's really done this. No one's made it who hasn't kind of played in college or hasn't played at least the sport in a different country. Everyone's played in most people play high school, college. So I was coming in totally raw. So that was just like, the odds of you getting to one of the major leagues, are low, but you have the kicking ability. So you just need to find someone who's going to give you a chance and recognize, okay, he doesn't have 10 years of American football, but he has 10 years, 8 years involved in professional sports, or he's a lifetime of kicking an oval shaped ball. So trying to find an open-minded enough person to give me that opportunity. So yeah, it was tough to leave rugby. It was tough to tell the team, but I just knew it was the right thing to do. I knew in my heart and soul, I was like, this door doesn't open for many people. It's kind of half open there for me now. Like, if I don't jump through and just go for it, I know I'll regret it. Because I love kicking. I know I'll regret this. So, and what's the main thing is, keep in mind, there was no guarantee, as I said, absolutely no guarantees of anything. I just quit my job and then had to move to San Diego and just training. But there was no league coming up. There was no one saying you can come play here. There was nothing. It was just kind of training, and you just kind of keep your head. It's almost to keep your head down, but you're just training, just hoping that. But at the same time, I had to record everything, and then I was contacting every team under the sun, any contact I could get, because I had to make them aware of me, because otherwise, I had no college career to fall back on. So that was quite difficult. But that was also it was a huge part of the journey, was kind of trying to like broker myself and sell myself to people, and I learned to get comfortable with being rejected, because usually things have usually gone well for me within reason in sport. But I had to be comfortable with just being told, not getting responsive, being told no or whatever. Like, I just knew I didn't have time to be kind of timid about it. I had to just jump in, and then through that I learned. Again, I keep saying I learned stuff, but I did how to be comfortable being vulnerable, or put yourself out there. And if you get rejected, that's fine, but like, where can you learn from that and kind of keep moving forward? So that's been a huge positive for myself in life in general.
Exactly. And what was that conversation like with family, with friends? Look, I'm moving here from this sport that everybody knows, rugby. I've had huge success in this. You mentioned there everything's gone well for you, to a new sport that maybe people haven't watched before and don't really know or understand.
Just that they didn't know or understand. It was just met with kind of like, because I just got caps for the national team, earlier, the year prior, and yeah, it was just more so like, what are you doing? So the American people were extremely supportive, because they knew the sport. They have more optimism in general, I think. So I think there was a lot more kind of, like, yeah, go for it, buddy, kind of crack. But I think family and friends in Ireland were a little bit like, what you mean? Like, you're going to just, like, what you have lined up within the sport? And I was like, absolutely nothing. And I've been told I'll probably not get anywhere, but I want to try. So I think there was initial skepticism and like curiosity, but then as to why, another kind of thing that I guess made it easier for my family to digest was, I was doing my master's online. So I said, look, at a bare minimum, I'm going to come out of this and I'm going to have learned a lot about the art of kicking, whether like that, I like to coach, so whether that's coaching in rugby, in Gaelic football, soccer, like there's a lot of transferable skills. So bare minimum, I'm going to come out of it with I would say almost unrivaled knowledge, because what I got access to in terms of knowledge was phenomenal. And hopefully a master's degree, worst case scenario. So that that made it probably a little bit easier to make the jump. At least how I rationalize it to other people, to make, so they could understand it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. What were those things you picked up? You mentioned like that unrivaled knowledge. I presume that was from the kicking coach you work with in San Diego and other people. What were some of the biggest learning points or lessons you took from originally starting? Like there's always, everyone says when you join a new sport, you progress a lot quicker because it's very easy to add 10%, whereas with rugby, to improve by 1% takes a huge amount of effort. But what were those 10%, 20% that you learned early on?
Yeah, that's good. It's a good point. That's definitely true. So in rugby, I like I never really got formal kicking training. It was just kind of, you're good at it, you just keep doing it, and figure it out. So just things around being a lot more aware of my angles. My angles meaning my well, the whole body, from like my torso, how I'm leveraging and maneuvering that. The angle of my foot in terms of my swing path, to make this like the swing mechanics on on entry to the kick, the angle of my foot and the exit of the kick, what kind of lines I'm going down. In rugby, I just I hadn't really thought about those things formally, and it was never really discussed. Whereas the NFL guys, literally all they do is kick, so they can go into phenomenal detail in terms of your plant foot, the width of your plant foot, the depth of your plant foot, which kind of the angle that you have it at, all these different things. I'd never been aware of in my life. I'd never thought about my plant foot, never thought about my foot angle or different posture stuff. Whereas all of a sudden now this was just every day sitting down in the video room, because we'd kick in the morning, it would all be recorded, and then they go break it down, as they say, break down the film after, and then you're just going into detail and all this stuff. So they're probably like the biggest blocks of knowledge that I got, or new knowledge. And as I said, I think it can be applied to multiple sports. But I guess at the end of the day, it's not crazy dissimilar. There's a lot of differences, but like from kicking a rugby ball, so that probably just allowed me to make really big jumps early, or pretty big jumps early, just because it's still an oval shaped ball.
Yeah.
But then you make those big jumps, but all of a sudden I was with the best of the best. And now I remember being like, wow, okay, I can see why these guys do what they do, or like I can see why these guys are the best in the world. And like literally they're the best in the world. There's only 32 teams in the NFL, and there's 9 in the CFL. So there's like 2 big leagues, NFL being 1, CFL being 2. So I'm picking with those guys, and I realized how good they were, but also that I knew that I was very, very close. But then the closer you get to that level, then the finest of margins become quite big, and that's something I've learned over the last 6 or 8 months since I've actually got to play the sport.
Mm-hmm. It's even, everyone talks about professional football, sometimes it's just the opportunity that's the difference between, let's say, me and you. We could be the same level kicker, but it's just you got the opportunity and I didn't. Yeah. Who gave you your first opportunity? Who was the first team, after kind of, as you said, nearly selling yourself for so long, who was the first team to get back to you and to offer you an opportunity?
So there's a league in the US called the Spring League. It's essentially it's like a feeder system to the NFL. So it's basically guys that played in the NFL and got injured and want to get back in, so they have to get game tape. That's a big thing, that need to see you're currently active when you're playing. Or guys that just missed out on the NFL, but they're still very good players, and they just, like you just said, they're probably good enough, they just need the opportunity. So this league was built for that, to give lads an opportunity to showcase their talents, so the NFL scouts can judge you, or the NFL CFL scouts can judge you. And for me, the only reason I got in, realistic, like I pestered the people with emails and just trying to like get, because there's only, I think, 6 teams. But a big thing for me was, I knew if I'm going to get in, I have to sell them on what I've done. Because if I just say, hey, I'm new to kicking, I want to kick, well, they'd say there's another 200-300 guys way more qualified than you who played in college and high school. So I couldn't be my way in. So I had to leverage the fact that I played for the Team USA national team. Like to represent the United States is a big thing, especially in the States. So like leveraging, like I've kind of had that experience. It's a cool story. I'm Irish, to potentially give me more fans, more people watching the games. Like I literally have to try and leverage those angles, because otherwise, and that's what I did. And thankfully they listened. They just said, okay, you're in. And so that was my first time playing. So yeah, I knew I had to be untraditional in my approach, because nothing about my background was traditional. So if I followed a traditional path, nothing was going to happen. So I had to think outside the box a little bit.
And how did you find that first experience? I know you later moved over to the European Rugby League, but how was that first game? And how did you find yourself growing and developing as a player throughout that spring league?
Yeah, it was like the first game was mad just because firstly we were playing in this like phenomenal stadium in Indianapolis. It's like the NFL team plays there.
I was just going to say you had a really cool picture in the stadium. It was class.
Like just massive dome, like this huge Lucas Oil Stadium. Couldn't think of the name, but I remember just kind of the lead up to the game, and it was like I have no idea what's going to happen. I've been training by myself, but in San Diego, with that group. But in that group, you're wearing shorts, you're wearing a t-shirt, you're just kicking. And you because they're just focused on the kicking. And then all of a sudden, I got into the league. Now I'm wearing a helmet. Now I'm wearing pads, and now I'm kicking with 60 people around me because they got to do there's some guys are on the pitch blocking, holding, and then everyone else is just around. So then all of a sudden in training, I was doing my first ever kicking with like 11v11 they call it, like a game scenario. That was like on a Monday, and then like the Friday I was playing my first ever game. So I only had like 2 sessions with people and pads and the whole. I'd worn pads, but not. It wasn't the real deal. So I just remember in the lead up to the game being excited, but also like just not knowing what's going to happen. Like just I had no reference. I knew I was capable, but I had no reference points because I had nothing to fall back on. So I remember just going out on the pitch for there's 4 quarters. The first quarter goes by and I'm just sitting down, just kicking into a net or reading my notes or just looking around, just killing time. And then the second quarter is going by and there's literally like 7 seconds left in the quarter. So I've probably been sitting down for 45 minutes to an hour at this point, maybe more. And then eventually, boom, field goal. So I remember, I just remember kind of walking out. We talk about processes and stuff, but I remember just kind of walking out and then just getting back in my stance. And I literally, I don't really remember what happened next. I just remember kicking the ball and looking up, and thankfully it was actually one of the sweetest kicks I've ever kicked to date. And I was sailing down the middle, and as if I woke up again. So I didn't have a system or a process. Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird one. It was honestly, it was just a bit surreal. But yeah, like I don't even know. I don't even know how to fully describe it. But yeah, that was phenomenal. And then I just remember going over to the sideline and the guys just being like, word got through the team that was my first ever kick. And the guys are like, what means your first ever kick? I was like, literally, that was my first ever kick. And then they say, but what about college or high school? Because I didn't broadcast the fact I wasn't super experienced to everyone. You miss 1 or 2, you get cut. Guys getting cut every day. So I don't want to give them an excuse. Although, to the league, the directors, they were more aware, but all the lads and some of the coaches wouldn't have been aware of how raw, like literally my first ever game. So once word kind of went down the sidelines and stuff, guys are like just laughing, saying like, they call me Tiger and just saying like, do you realize that's Tiger's first ever kick? And yeah, we were doing it on that stage, like it was on national TV in the States. So obviously there's a lot of people watching such a big country, and in that stadium, it's such a cool moment for me. Whatever happens here on out, that was a phenomenal moment to have experienced, minus the 2 seconds where I wasn't fully where I probably blacked out. But yeah, that was that was class. And then obviously in the back of that, just people were just so supportive and nice, because the clip of that kick got a lot of traction, and people just saying this is gas, who is this Irish fella, what's going on.
Yeah, and it's funny because there is a couple of Irish guys over there. I was looking at a post there. I can't remember exactly how many numbers, but I do know there's a good few kickers, and they recently Georgia Tech and North Carolina played against Georgia. Obviously, the 2 lads were there. It's been 45 years since the last Irishman, Neil O'Donoghue, was played in the NFL. How big will it be for Ireland? Obviously, NFL is very popular here. I think it's grown hugely, and obviously the Irish NFL show, I know you've been on a few times. How big a moment will it be for Ireland when somebody, I think it will happen, when someone does eventually get back to the NFL?
Yeah, I'd judging by what I've experienced playing the filter leagues coming up the way, and the amount of people that have reached out and been supportive, and you're just highly interested with it, to see a lad born and raised here playing Gaelic football, rugby, didn't go to college, didn't play football in college. People are engaging with that and really supportive. So I think whether it's me or whether it's one of the lads that are in college now, like I think it would be huge kind of titanic moment for the sport here. Definitely would be huge, and hopefully, a big part of how I'm approaching this as well is trying to be a bit of a pioneer about it all, because not everyone's going to. In some ways, it would have been better if I went to college in America, or in a lot of ways, it would have been better if I played college football. But part of kind of what I'm thinking for me has been, it will make it all the sweeter just like to have got to. I already feel this way because now that I'm in the CFL, is they got where I've gotten. I didn't have that breathing ground or that training ground. As I said, my first kick was in an NFL stadium with like 500,000 people on Fox watching. So I didn't have those moments to kind of learn in a smaller scale, or, but in saying the lads that you referenced there, sorry, I don't want to make it sound bad because like they're playing on a big stage. That's phenomenal.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, phenomenal what they're all doing. I guess I didn't really have a whole lot of preparation before that.
The learning experience they're getting now, you weren't exposed to that at their age. You were still playing rugby.
Yeah, it would have been helpful. It would have been helpful for sure, and especially to get into the NFL. Not having even the guy Neil Dunn, who you mentioned, like he played in college in America. Everyone played in college, so I don't have that to my CV, which it's how they judge you. It's literally how they judge you. You either get drafted or signed. So I didn't have the most key ingredient, but thankfully I found other ways to add some value. But I think whoever gets the opportunity to do that, to play in the NFL and like be an Irish fella doing it, the next Irish fella doing it, it'd be class. It'd be class. And it will happen sooner rather than later, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. Out of interest, is kicking more mental or physical skill? What do you think?
At this level, mental. Because everyone's very good. Everyone's very good. And I've been fortunate to sit down with a lot of the guys that won Super Bowl and stuff. And obviously we spend a lot of time looking at our swing mechanics, as they call it. But they all just say it comes down to the mental side of it. It really does. And I've, playing in the Spring League and playing in the European League, I realized that because you're such an isolated position, kind of on your own, and you're only in for such a short period of time. So you have a lot of time to yourself and just waiting. And when you're on to score. And the expectation is you score every time. That doesn't happen for any kicker, but the expectation is you score every time. So mentally, like I've had to learn a lot, or I talked about like kind of detaching from external, whatever it may be, and just kind of focusing on the moment in front of your face. But that's the mental side of it. Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to say that. Once you get to that level, you need to get good first, obviously. But then, at that level, it's mental is almost everything, because everyone can kick.
When you sit down with players that have been in the NFL, have won Super Bowls, teams, what's the initial conversation like? Oh, I'm from Ireland. What's that like, trying to navigate that in a country that some of them have never met somebody from Ireland?
Yeah. I think everyone, to be fair, everyone loved it. Like everyone loved the fact they thought it was gas just because, they might have heard of a foreign guy playing, but again, he played in college. I met this guy in college. So they all thought it was gas that that I just hadn't, when I met that guy, for example, the Super Bowl winner, I was saying, oh, that day was my first time ever having the ball snapped to me so I could catch and kick it. Usually when I was punting, it'd just be me and my own. So I'd have it in my hand, I'd take 3 steps and give it a kick. Whereas that day was my first time having a guy rip it back, and he was like an NFL snapper. So he just threw a bullet towards my belly button. And I remember the first one catching it and being like, wow. So they all thought it was gas that I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. And supportive. Yeah, but they just thought it was just mad. They loved the fact that I was Irish, loved the fact that I had a rugby background. Everyone was excited to say, oh, you probably can't wait to tackle and things like that. And obviously I was like, I'd laugh it off and say, yeah, but if you're tackling, something's gone wrong. But they were all very supportive, but just kind of, they just hadn't really seen someone do this, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking before we hit record about you were in the Canaries recently, kind of all your training. Can you talk us through? I assume at the moment you're very individualised. You don't have an NFL kicking coach here in Ireland, or when you were in the Canaries. What do you do by yourself on the pitch? And you even mentioned mobility and stretching is nearly your routine now for the next few months.
Yeah. It's gas because I in rugby, for example, you'd kick the day before the game. You go to the stadium, you'd kick a good few kicks and things like that. Whereas in football, 48 hours out, you don't swing your leg. Like it's all about what's he say, conservation and preservation. Like they're just so kind of dialed in. So as a result, from a kicking perspective, I might only do like 3 sessions a week, 3 kicking sessions a week, just because it's a pretty violent motion because in rugby and Gaelic, we don't have the same swing path and we don't have the same extension because we're on the move. So as a result of this, it rips your lower back, your hips, all the torque, it comes under a lot of duress doing that. So as a result, your sessions are usually shorter, and like an hour session, but you're not kick. You might kick maybe 100, not even, maybe like, no, not even close. Sorry, like 50 balls.
Okay.
Yeah, just because, but 50 balls that you're fully committing to kicking, and you might do a few little kind of warm ups and stuff, but maybe 50 balls max where you're 100% committing to the kick. But yeah, out there, I was just trying to get 3 sessions in a week. It was extremely windy, which I guess it's a small island and it's exposed, so that happens. We're just trying to do 3 kicks a week, and then every you hit the gym, you go to the gym like 4 to 5 times, and then try and get as much yoga. I was doing a lot of yoga, so yoga was my stretching then. Just doing a lot of yoga, but yeah, it was tough. It was tough because I moved out there to Spain to train, to be ready if a call comes. But as recently as 2 weeks ago, we were sitting down journaling and kind of wondering, like, because as it turns out, some professional rugby teams started reaching out to me and said, "Hey, you want to come back and play like now?" Because the American season's underway. So I know I didn't want to do it, but I got to a point where it was like, damn, I've been pretty much unemployed for the most part of the last year and a half, and it doesn't feel like my phone's been ringing here. So literally as recently as 2 weeks. But then again, you just kind of go back to, like, when you're the first one to try and kind of go through and do something, and there's no path laid out. There's no path. You have to figure out the path. Hopefully more to come behind you. You realize that you're going to have those moments where you're just trying to be. It's not going to be easy, but just kind of stick with it and just trust yourself. And thankfully, yeah, a call came last week or 10 days, whatever it was, 10 days ago. But yeah, that's kind of how I spent most of the time in Spain.
I've asked a number of guests this question, particularly anyone at the professional level. What's your take on the phrase "do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life"?
Yeah, I like now I'd say yes, but there was times where like I said, when I was playing rugby here in Ireland, most definitely became a job, versus something I love. So like there's been times it's been yes, there's been times it's been no for me. But I do definitely remind myself a lot now in football that, like, you're doing what 10-year-old Tadhg would have been jumping over the moon to do and ecstatic. So, like, to not take that for granted, like, because work is fun. But I do understand though that for some people, like, it can definitely become a job and become a slog. And I experienced that myself. So, and that's when I change it from I play rugby to, like, in my head it's almost, oh, I'm going to work. Whereas, like, when you're having a good time, it is more that played fun element. So that's not that I'd say to other people, but like that. But that's probably kind of how I thought about it at the time. It became a job that I didn't necessarily enjoy a whole lot, and people, find that hard to believe at times. But that's just how it was for me. And thankfully, I discovered my love for it again, and now I'm doing something different. But yeah, that's that's kind of, I guess, how I'd look at that. That's a non-committal answer. Hence.
When throughout your whole career, throughout all the sports, everything you've played, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from sports? Is there anything that just stands out to you?
Don't care. Don't take, like, well, if you wouldn't take advice from the person, don't take criticism. That's, like, straight away, like, and like, don't care what other people are kind of thinking about you and judging. Again, I was quite fearful at the start to do this because it's like, oh, what if I fail, or what people say, blah blah blah. And then I just kind of realized, like, what does that actually matter? Does that matter what some fella on bloody Twitter that has a weird name that I don't know, does that matter?
With 0 followers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, does that matter? No, it doesn't. So, like, that's yeah. If you wouldn't take advice from them, I'm not going to take criticism. Not that people are lining up to give criticism, but just the idea, the fear of failure. If so, but, like, just embrace the journey, embrace the opportunity that you have. So that's something that, yeah, I just don't attach half as much weight or any weight really to other people and what they think about what it is I'm doing. If they support, great. If they don't, fair enough. Like I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So that's something that probably I wish I knew earlier. Like it just is irrelevant. Like I say, those external stuff like that's an example of other people's thoughts about you. Pure external has no relevance to what you can control, and the sphere of control. That's another thing I spend a lot of time on. They're not in that sphere of control, so don't give them a door in. And how you open the door is by caring what they think a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of how I look.
I like that analogy there with the doors. Obviously, you signed with a team in CFL. Goals moving forward, what are you hoping to achieve over the next 2 to 5 years? Where we hope to see you now over the next couple of months? Obviously in Canada, but beyond that.
Yeah. Now that I'm playing in a legitimate big stage for like a big organization, that's going to be like, I'm just delighted to be. But first of all, there's no guarantees either in this sport. You can get cut after a day, so there's a real business transaction ruthless side to it all. But again, as long as like when they commit to it and really get after it, like attack the opportunities I get. If I do get cut, at least I threw myself at it. I didn't kind of just try and chip it over and play it safe. So in the short term, I'm just focused on going in there and winning the job, hopefully as a kicker, as a punter, ideally both. And then the town I'm playing for, Hamilton, I think they get like 25,000 every week. They look like they love it, big support. So just trying to go in there and just like, I'm kind of flying the flag for the Irish. So like, show that we're more than capable, because a big motivation for me is opening the door, is paving the path. I think that's like, it can be really cool experience for me to have, and a unique thing, and help others. Because it's so nice, the message you get. Anyway, I'm going off a bit of a tangent there.
No, not at all. Would you get many messages from younger kids?
Yeah. No, loads. Probably from like to 10 years of age up to maybe like 25. Because I think we in Ireland, like, we're good at kicking. Like we grew up doing it, so we love it. And like there's like, I would have been very interested in watching someone in my shoes existed when I was younger, because I'd be like, wow, you just kick, like that's like, you focus on kicking and not kicking alone. So anyway, that's something that I think will be like really, it's a motivation to obviously I want to do my own things as well, but like it's definitely part of the journey. Is like, I use the kind of analogy in my head a lot. It's like going through a forest and there's no path and it's overgrown, and like someone has to chop it down, someone has to open up a path. So even this morning in the gym, telling myself that but that's so yeah, I guess that's the motivation. But for me, just perform in Canada, they've given me the opportunity now, a platform to go do it. Ideally, I want to go in there, dominate it, and the NFL comes next year. Like that's the perfect.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Sure, that's the plan. But if you just kind of keep every day, keep getting small wins. Another thing I tell myself a lot: keep stacking up small wins. Like, you don't have to be too big, but just keep making that progression. And the short term, that's all I can do. And if I keep stacking the wins together, doors will continue to open up. So that's where my head's at.
Brilliant. I'm going to move on to sideline 7. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. I just realised I didn't actually send you these, so sorry in advance. So take your time with these.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So question 1, what is your favourite quote? And you've mentioned loads of different triggers and phrases throughout, so I'm interested to hear what would be your, even if you want to pick a top 3 if you have a couple.
Well, you miss 100%. When you miss 100% of shots you don't take. Like, I tell myself that a lot. Wayne Gretzky, I'm pretty sure. So
Michael Scott, no.
Yeah. I was going to say that, but it wasn't. Yeah, that's a better one. But yeah, that's it's just true. So I just kind of keep telling myself, like, just like keep shooting, and if it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least you took the shot. So that's what comes off my head, off the top of my head there.
Brilliant. Question 2: what's the best sporting event you've been to? And you can pick one as a fan or one as a player.
Oh yeah. Probably actually a fan. When Ireland beat the All Blacks in Chicago a few years ago, that was living in the States. That was a like a class weekend, just because it was a huge moment for Ireland doing it for the first time. Like, yeah, I think it's cool to see people kind of break down barriers that hadn't been done before, and So yeah, that's as a fan would have been witnessing that. It was cool. It was good crack. I knew some of the lads in the team, and it was good fun that evening. But yeah, that's what jumps out at me.
Good stuff. What's been your biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Definitely just getting my shoulder reconstructed when I felt it was just trying to figure out, I was going to go down the academic route at that point, but I didn't really, I was never massively academically inclined at least at that back then, because I just said I'm going to play sport. So school isn't that important, but that's obviously not true. But that's what I was kind of at the time. But I'd say there's maybe just a little bit when it first happened, and just when I was trying to get past it, and just when I was playing, I was a shadow of my former self. So that was kind of quite difficult. But then again, thankfully that happened, because it opened up all the other opportunities I've since had.
Exactly. Question 4, what's been your biggest achievement on or off the pitch?
Actually, it's definitely what just happened the last week. The fact that I've actually got to the CFL. I think some guys that have been born in Ireland have played in it, but like I said, they were born in Ireland, but then they kind of emigrated, or they played in high school, or they played in college in the state, Canada. So I'm very proud of the fact that I've managed to find a way there without having had those experiences.
Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
As I said earlier, don't care. Like, don't attach any. So it's a curse. Other people's opinions are relevant, and don't attach any. Don't give it don't give it time. Don't give it your emotional energy. Don't put anything towards it, because it's absolutely irrelevant. And it's obviously negative, but it's not going to enhance who you are or how you perform. So like, what's the point of engaging with that? So yeah, other people's thoughts and opinions, let them have it, but it you don't control it, so it doesn't matter.
Question 6, who would be your dream dinner guest and why? And you can open up the table to a couple of people if you want.
Jeez, I'm trying to think. Well, since I've been living in the States, I found Tom Brady phenomenal. He's like 44 or something.
Crazy.
Mad, like, just to maintain that level of excellence, like just to tap into someone's brain like that. Yeah, I guess it's going on the standard athlete route, but I just do find that absolutely phenomenal that someone could do that. So I mean, I'll have a one-on-one sit down with him, and I'll bring the notepad along and be asking any questions. So I'd be happy with that.
Brilliant. Final question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Oh, is that New Beginnings? Like this.
New Beginnings.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of there's a new big chapter to be written here. So yeah, I'm in that kind of transition stage, starting a new journey.
Brilliant. If there's anyone listening that wants to keep up with your story, where's the best place to kind of follow you in terms of social media?
Yeah, on either any Instagram or Twitter, I suppose. And it's just my the fact my name is a bit unique. My username is literally just at Tadhg Leader. Easy find.
Brilliant. Look, Tadhg, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed this chat. The very best of luck with everything in Canada and beyond. I'm looking forward to keeping in touch. Cheers.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed chatting there. Said a lot. Hopefully it's somewhat interesting. But yeah, cheers for what you're doing as well. It's great. It's nice to kind of have some different questions which you asked, which let me think, but really enjoyed.
A massive thank you to Tadhg for joining me on the podcast today. I'll be sure to leave all of his social media links in the description box below if you'd like to keep up with his journey. I just want to wish him the very best of luck as he jets off to Canada very soon. If you are enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it does help the show grow. A big thank you to ActiMed for sponsoring this episode, and to you for listening.